Bitcoin, we have a problem as we head into the month of August. Plenty to discuss on the very, very high term timeframes. Once again, referencing the accumulation and distribution indicator, which is accurately called for all of the macro lows in Bitcoin's history. Now giving another secondary setup / signal, if you will, that does have major implications specifically for this month of what is it called? August. Yeah. August. It's August, baby. All right, sweet. So let's just jump right into it. I think we should waste no more time getting to the content of today and following up on yesterday's video, essentially going over the statistics as far as August returns, a little bit more skewed towards the downside, aka downside more likely in August. In this case, referencing the accumulation and distribution indicator right here. Again, this is the one that has helped us, among other things, call the macro low at about $15,000 thus far. But now you can see that the indicator itself is turning green. We have officially seen the first tick close green coming into August, and that is significant as we have seen this interplay play out many times in the past. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, now working on time number 5 in the past, being that it doesn't happen all that often. So the green vertical bars represent the turning of where the macro low was, where the slope changed from downslope to upslope. And then the light blue cyan color represents that first tick closing green, of course. So going into the chart right here, you can see very quickly, I suspect, that the cyan colored vertical bars match up with a very short-term correction, actually. In fact, if we go back to the last one, we can see in September of 2020, there was a nice downside move. In fact, very close to, the current timing. I mean, September, August, blah, 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 blah. This move, didn't look like much on the charts, but from top to bottom was a 20% move. If we are measuring from high to low, for just looking at the actual body here, then it was, how much of a loss was it? It was about a 7% loss. So not all that crazy in terms of Bitcoin. Of course, if this was like traditional markets, that would be cause for major concern. Same thing over here in November of 2019, a nice downside move. This one opening and closing for a full loss of about 15.5%. And then if we go back to the one prior to that, that would be in March of 2016. And same thing right here. What looks like a very small move, and yeah, about 6.25%, not so bad. And then we have the first one, the first iteration, which was back on over all the way over here in July of 2012. Now this one did not correct on the first candle where it did close like that. It actually corrected on the second one, but did close green ultimately. So, in this case, I'd still be kind of saying the same thing as yesterday in that, yeah, more likely to see August as a corrected month. And then we get to play the question of, or we get to ask the question of, we get to play the question of, what the fuck, man? My English is... it's questionable now, man. It's very questionable. And the unfortunate thing is I don't know any of the languages. But we get to play the game of how far does a pullback come? Well, obviously the very obvious area would be somewhere around that light blue moving average, that cyan moving average, which is coming in currently at about the upper 27s, low 28s number, kind of in alignment with a couple of the other things that we've been looking at. But I expect that we'll now go to the next chart and go over such a fucking simplistic way of looking at this. Usually I absolutely hate this type of analysis, but you know what? It fits my bias right now. So I'm going to go with it. And in this case, and in all jokes aside, we do see a nice trend line, a diagonal trend line, which is what I typically don't really care for. In fact, I always don't really care for it. Aligning with the last few major lows. So coming off of the December lows right here, connected with the March and the more recent June lows, we can see that that is coming in where? Low $28,000. Also likely in alignment with that green 55 exponential moving average right here on the 2-day time frame that I quite like for the higher term for spot price action. Also coming in from this sort of nice consolidation right here. So we do see it essentially lining up with the horizontal, which I put a lot more faith in if I'm going to be using tools like this to begin with, which typically I do not. But I just thought it was a pretty easy visual representation, also in alignment with what we did see over here. And, if we were to see, let's say like, 6% correction from where this month opened up, that would put us basically down around there. Maybe a wick lower, that's fine. But somewhere in the more near term probably does base off of that region, as Bitcoin does come under a bit more pressure in the short term. Also aligning with, actually we'll get to that chart maybe tomorrow, but I think that this chart and a chart that I much more favor as it's mathematically based is going to be the daily HPDR setup, which has really been unchanged for the past few weeks here, but the bottom side is still shown 28,200. So I do like that area aligning with multiple different things. Of course, can things get worse over time? Yeah, sure. That's always possible. No doubt about that. But I really want to be seeing a closure below about 28,000 bucks before I start to entertain that possibility. And at that point, yeah, very likely looking, just south of 27, just south of 27, like let's say 26.8 would be an area of interest. And then you got, of course, below that 25.8. So, about another $1,000 down right here. If that does start to, if that does start to come into question, in the more near term on the 4-hour time frame, talking about more immediate continuation, we do see that the bottom side of the current range still unchanged over the past week now, is going to be showing 28.7, meaning that if Bitcoin does start to close below there, I would be looking for that next move down somewhere around the low 28s, like let's call it 28.1, 28.2 region, and try for a bounce, and then see if those magical trend lines do play out, at least for a bounce. They very likely do get at least an initial bounce, but then the question is, does the bounce hold or not? If it does not, then have to entertain the possibility in the likely probability of about 26.8, let's say, and then below there, things can get a little bit more nasty. I still remain with my worst case scenario, for a pullback here, somewhere around like 25, maybe a little bit below 25. But for right now, have to kind of what's called analysize what the interaction is amongst these areas of interest before calling, potential low. But those would be the areas that I'll be looking for. Of course, there is always possibility that this could all fail and blow up, in this case to the upside. What would be the first major initial warning flag that is going to be happening? Well, now seeing as Bitcoin has put in, a very obvious consolidation range high at about 29,500, we need to reclaim that region to once again put it into a little bit more of a strong standing there, and make this look like a potential spring trap from a Wyckoff accumulation or reaccumulation, I should say, perspective, albeit probably unlikely. Anyways, let's reference stochastic momentum over here, see what the current pivots are coming in around, and we can see that on CME again when we were looking at the higher term time frame momentum pivots coming in from last week to this week, saying, hey, again, more likely to be downside biased at best, maybe sideways, best case scenario sideways for the boo laws. But the weekly here again, this is going to be problematic, and does certainly offer up the potential that this could, retrace much more than 28.2, perhaps down to 25. Again, that's kind of my worst case right here, but weekly stochastic momentum remains downside angle heavily as long as Bitcoin's below 31,200, also creating some bearish divergence coming in from this point to this point. Bearish divergence on stochastic oscillator, I'm not like super, gung-ho about, but probably good enough for at least like a small move, at least a small move. 5-day time frame, same thing, same exact positioning, actually same exact pivot in fact. Daily time frame obviously did not meet its pivot yesterday, is going to cross back onto the downside today if Bitcoin does close below 29,150. So in order to keep open the short-term Bula hopium, 29,150 would need to be closed above in the next, I would say, day, maybe 2 days at most. But as you can see, the daily stochastic oscillator is all the way down here in a really, really critical zone already. So what does that essentially imply? It essentially implies that this corrective move probably doesn't have that much further to go before a decent bounce. Again, that could be 28.2, that could be 26.8, or that could be like 25-ish. But for right now, it is going to be showing pressure down. Again, 29,150 going to be the magical number for today's closure specifically. Not that far away from current price action, obviously, but as long as Bitcoin's below there, downside going to be more likely, obviously. 12-hour time frame, freshly down, coming below 29,300. 6-hour time frame is also going to be freshly down below 29,550. 4-hour time frame is also going to be down below 29,400, and hourly time frame is Also going to be down below 29,000. In fact, this is one of the rare instances where we see pretty much everything align with each other. So probably does see at least somewhere right around here. Probably tries for a bounce there, and then we'll come back to that when the time occurs. So I think it feels really dark in here right now. It's actually not that dark, by the way, but I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off. Forgot to do the free shell of the day. Of course, you can still get the Jewelite for free for the first 30 days if you follow the directions in the link in the description below. What else? Yeah, I think that's it for today. So I'll shut it off right there. We'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with some more interesting setups actually, based off of the skeleton key, which I think is starting to slowly bake in some pretty interesting ones on the medium term timeframes that I think are worth referencing. So we'll pick it up there. And with that said, I want to be wishing you the best as always. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. Take care.